Welcome to Oulton Park, everyone. The Protyre Motorsport Ginetta GT5 Challenge. It wouldn't be a British GT meeting without the GT5 Challenge on the bill, and they are here to entertain us all at Oulton Park for a trio of races, the first of which took place yesterday, and another two taking place today, which kick-start the 2022 Championship. We've got a lot of returning names back this year, quite a few new drivers too that are trying to get to grips with these Ginettas. And as always, I'm sure they'll put on quite the show for us. Pretty pleasant bank holiday Monday here. It's not too cold, getting into the high teens track temperature, the ambient temperature perhaps a little lower, but it's still perfectly pleasant. It's nice and dry for the time being as well. So looking forward to hopefully an exciting 20 minutes of racing. That's certainly what the GT5 Challenge gave us on Saturday when they had their first race of the season. One that was a race that was won by Nat Hodgkiss with Harley Horton just under 0.6 of a second behind at the flag, but there was quite a lot went on in that one. We lost Will Jenkins and Mikey Doble, two expected frontrunners, before the race had really got underway. Jenkins retiring and not even taking the start, and Doble going off into the gravel on the first lap. And for Mikey in particular, a real championship favourite coming into this year. That was a big shock indeed. We also lost Ignacio Zanon from Raceway Motorsport and his teammate Paolo Santi, with Dave Sutton also a retirement. All of them with separate issues. We didn't have any multi-car incidents on Saturday. We certainly hope that will be the case again in today's race. First round of the championship then, of course, so the number 95 car there of Nat Hodgkiss, the race one winner, leads the points from Harley Horton and Sam Smith. That isn't, though, how they're going to line up on the grid for this one, because the race 2 grid is based upon the second fastest lap times from the qualifying session on Saturday morning. So Will Jenkins, who I said was another one of the heavy hitters that didn't really get anywhere in the first race, he will be starting on pole position. So he is the white and blue number 30 Elite Motorsport car there on the inside of row 1, and then the blue and white Saltire liveried car of Nat Hodgkiss lines up alongside him. Sam Smith, former double former Mazda MX-5 Super Cup champion, is the orange number 8 car, the car run by TCR. That starts third on the grid, and Mikey Doble starting fourth, which is where he started on Saturday. He got into third, in fact he got into second I think at the start of the race, and then went off all on his own at Island Bend. So the field making its way onto their green flag lap. Two classes of driver, but the car's all the same. There is a Pro and an AM class. It is, of course, the Pro drivers that you'd expect to see at the front of the field. The AM category was won by Chris White, though. It wasn't a great day for Raceway Motorsport, but he was able to bring them some joy with an AM class victory from Karim Sekat and Phil McGarty. All of them these days very established drivers within the championship. Oulton Park looking absolutely superb here on this Easter bank holiday then. A big crowd gathering as we get deeper into the morning's activities. A busy day, lots of races for them to enjoy across the board, and many of them, a very knowledgeable crowd they are, many of them making sure to stay trackside and not wander off as the Ginettas head out, because they know that this is always going to be one of the more exciting races of the day. So here's the grid then, based upon second fastest lap times from qualifying. Will Jenkins and Nat Hodgkiss on the front row, as I said, with Sam Smith and Mikey Doble on row number 2. Smith coming out of MX-5, Mikey Doble, race winner and championship contender in BMW Compact Cup racing. Will Oulton then is fifth on the grid alongside Harley Horton, the runner-up on Saturday, so the Elite Motorsport driver looking to try and go one better today. Connor Grady then and Ignacio Zanon on the fourth row of the grid. Ignacio just hoping to get to the end of this one. Rounding out the top 10, we've got Ruben Haig and Dave Sutton, the Avago Racing team, one of my favourite team names in the paddock, rounding out the top 10 on the grid, with Kian Donaldson and Harry Mangan next. Race Car Consultants driver ahead of the Elite Motorsport car. Then on the 7th row, we get Sam Harvey and Will Rochford. There are rather more pro drivers than AMs in the championship this year. Of course, some AMs moving up into the pro class as they get through season after season. There is the AM pole sitter, Karim Sekat, who's got the race 1 winner, Chris White, alongside him. So it was White that got the better of Sekat for the win on Saturday, but they start the other way round for race number 2 of the weekend. Gerson Zarpelau is next alongside Phil McGarty on the 9th row of the grid, and they're number 10 for Bal Sidhu and Paolo Santi, another non-finisher the other day, with Neil Finnegan at the very back of the grid. So field coming round Lodge Corner up onto the start-finish line outside our commentary position. And so I get a good view out the window of the cars pulling up there onto the Oulton Park starting line. There is the pole sitter Will Jenkins then, looking to try and make amends rather after the disappointment of yesterday's race, the non-finish very early in the race for Will. In fact, registered as not having even started that first lap, unfortunately. So Jenkins very much, he pulled over, I seem to recall, after the first corner. So he did start, but didn't make it very far at all. Let's hope that they've sorted the mechanical issues that plagued him on Saturday. Round number 2 then of the 2022 Protyre Motorsport Ginetta GT5 Challenge about to get underway from Oulton Park. Pole position is held by Will Jenkins, Nat Hodgkiss alongside him. Lights out, away they go then off towards Old Hall Corner for the first time. Bit of tyre smoke there from Sam Smith, I think that was, third on the grid. It's Hodgkiss that gets the lead though. Not a good start for Jenkins. He's down to second at least. That could be third or fourth though, with Mikey Doble and Harley Horton round the outside. Horton, the yellow and black elite car, with a really good start, but gets squeezed out wide over the curbs as they exit Old Hall Corner. So in the end, Jenkins does slot into second ahead of a decent start again there for Mikey Doble in third, Horton fourth, and that's Sam Smith on the outside line. The number 8 car, he's going to get shown the edge of the road at Cascades, and the man that started third on the grid is not third as they make their way down Lakeside for the first time. Leader then with a small gap, but the slipstream very powerful in these Ginetta G40s, so I would imagine he's going to have a hard job getting away here, is Nat Hodgkiss. Certainly that was the case yesterday, although a safety car period or two certainly helped the rest of the pack keep him in close tabs. There's Chris White up the inside of Karim Sekat. They're the AM class leaders, or at least they were the top 2 on the grid. Didn't quite spot there whether they'd retained those positions halfway around the first lap. They were certainly debating a position, with Sekat in the end coming out on top. So over hilltop we go then. Hodgkiss the leader. You can see Jenkins already trying to go back after him after that slightly tardy start. Third place is the battle right now then, with Mikey Doble under a lot of pressure here from Harley Horton. Doble has at least got further in this race than he did on Saturday. He made it successfully through Island Bend. He was saying that was his first retirement from a race since his very first season of circuit racing about 3 or 4 years ago. So he's normally a very reliable, safe pair of hands, and looking to try and re-establish that reputation here today. He's got a lot of work to do though, because he's got Horton right behind him. Then you've got the 31, which is Will Orton. Connor Grady behind them, and then the second of those sort of orangey coloured cars is Sam Smith. To the inside looks Horton into Lodge Corner, but not quite close enough to get there, so they round the tight right-hander and come through towards the end of the first lap of racing. The lead gap for Nat Hodgkiss is a decent one. Won yesterday's race by half a second. He's already a lot further up the road than that, nearly a full second clear of Jenkins, who has 1 1/4 seconds in hand over this 4-way fight for third between Doble, Horton, Orton and Grady. Look at the inside there a bit further back. That might have been Will Rochford. Karim Sekat is leading the AM class, I just saw, ahead of Chris White, with Paolo Santi third in the class at the moment. So out of Cascades, down the Lakeside Straight. These Ginetta GT5 Challenge cars, always very popular, and sort of the second step, if you like, on the Ginetta racing ladder. We've seen a lot of these drivers racing in Ginettas for quite some time though. Harley Horton in particular, who's trying to use his few years now of experience of G40 racing, one form or another, to get past Mikey Doble, whose father was a one-mate racer some 10-15 years or so ago. Now some penalties already, 10-second penalties this early into the race are probably start procedure penalties, namely jump starts. Numbers 14 and 10. Well, number 14 is the Dave Sutton car, which runs in 8th position, and number 10 is Karim Sekat, the leader of the AM class, being given a 10-second penalty. So the number 10 car of Karim Sekat, he managed to keep Chris White at bay at the start, but perhaps did it illegally, because a penalty is going his way, and that is going to be a real disaster, because given how evenly matched that AM field is, that will probably drop him off the podium by the end of the race. The 10 seconds added on to their race time at the end, so wherever that car finishes, drop them down 10 seconds through the running order, and that will be their final finishing position. Leaders getting closer together on this lap. It couldn't be much closer for third place though. Mikey Doble knows he's under pressure, so he defends the inside line heading into Lodge Corner, and defends it successfully as well for now, but how much longer can he withstand the pressure here from Harley Horton, who's all over him as they head towards Old Hall Corner into this really deceptively quick right-hander. Got a nice little dip right on the apex, so it goads you into carrying lots of speed into it, but then it levels out on the exit and spits you wide over that curb. They all just about kept it within track limits, I think, but this has got action written all over it, hasn't it? Doble, Horton, Orton, Grady, the 4 drivers at play. A bit of a gap then back to Sam Smith and Dave Sutton, the second of those drivers being the one that's got a 10-second penalty. Through Ireland we go then. 20-minute race, so you can sort of afford to bide your time here, but already with the leading two getting away, you'd imagine these four drivers know that third place is kind of going to be what they're racing for. The lead battle, though, is on, because Jenkins set the fastest lap on that first full flying lap of the race, a 52.9, which was some 2.5 tenths or so quicker than the race leader. That, I'm afraid, is the 97 car off. That's Cian Donaldson, the Scot. Race car consultant's driver off at Shell. Now he digs himself out, almost gets beached on the grass, and look at the mess that he's made of the racetrack. He's dug half the gravel trap out and strewn it across the road at Shell. That is not going to be pleasant when the leaders get there in half a lap's time or so. So that could easily catch out the race leader, Nat Hodgkiss, who's going to be the first to see that very slippery surface. And given the fact he's under such pressure now from Will Jenkins, that is not ideal at all. Out of Druids comes the third place squabble, still the same order as it was, but Lodge Corner is probably the best overtaking opportunity on the circuit. Doble knows it, that's why he keeps moving to cover, and he knows that Horton can't go to the outside because that will leave the door wide open for Will Oulton behind him. So Will Oulton is just waiting for that inside line to be left open. There go the leaders, almost a challenge into Old Hall Corner there. Will Jenkins with another fastest lap, 152.4. So using the slipstream to further improve his lap times there, but still 4 tenths quicker than the leader is pretty impressive. Horton looked like he had a good exit from Old Hall. He's alongside Doble for third as they drop into Cascades Corner on the outside line. Horton is desperately late on the brakes. He's going to run out of grip on the outside line though, so Doble might come back at him, and as they hold each other up, so will Oulton and Conor Grady get a sniff of this as well. Leaders at Island Bend, still Hodgkiss ahead of Jenkins. Just about for third place in the background. It is very close indeed. The leaders stay nose to tail into Shell. They survive the gravel, but what about this group, because they're all together? Doble somehow has managed to get back ahead of Horton, and look at that, round the outside goes Will Oulton. He's going to move into fourth as well. Fantastic driving that from Will Oulton. Opportunistic driving. He's not got the move done yet though, as they run door handle to door handle, rubbing wing mirrors, trading paint, but through goes the 31 car, and Oulton takes full advantage of that to move into fourth place. Now for the race lead, down into Hislops, here comes the attack. Will Jenkins, having caught Nat Hodgkiss, wastes absolutely no time at all in going through. He gets the inside line for Hislops, and he moves that number 30 car, which didn't finish yesterday's race, into the lead of race number 2. Good stuff that from Jenkins, but now he's got to try and pull away, and that is not going to be the work of a moment, especially if we get a safety car, which we could, because into the gravel trap has gone Finnegan, Neil Finnegan, the Zentek Motorsport driver. That is at Cascades, but thanks to the, as always, stellar work from the marshals, they've got him out of the gravel. No need for a safety car. It's good news, really, because we don't want these battles to be interrupted either for the lead or for third place, which I notice is now a 6-car affair with the arrival of Smith and Sutton onto their tail. Leaders out of Lodge Corner then. New race leader is Will Jenkins, but as I suspected, he's not having an easy time of it here. Can't get away because that slipstream is so powerful, and it's a surprisingly high average speed that you carry here at Oulton Park. So the tow will allow Hodgkiss to stay on his tail, in theory. Certainly that's the way it's working for now. Doble then third, Oulton fourth. Harley Horton, having briefly got into third at this part of the track a lap ago, now finds himself losing a position to Oulton, so Horton down to fifth. Then it's Conor Grady, still ahead of Sam Smith. Oh, very wide Will Oulton there. That was a sideways moment, getting a wheel on the grass actually as he came out of Cascades. Gathered it together though without losing too much time. See the racing line getting a little bit cleaner at Shell. That will definitely need sweeping after this race, and it's the outside line that is still resembling a beach, and so that's going to make it difficult for drivers to go side by side through there. Oh, you feel for the teams who must be watching the cars hammering these curves and wincing, because it's so easy to break a suspension part, a steering part, a drive shaft over those curves, and they really do abuse the suspension through that Britain chicane. Spectacular to watch, and they must feel it's the quickest way through, but it certainly is asking for trouble, that you'd have to say. Through Hislops into Knickerbrook Corner goes this almighty fight for third place. Doble, in all fairness to him, he lost third place briefly a lap or so ago, but ever since he got it back, he's continued to defend really, really well. And Doble in that third position is going to have to keep defending, I think, for the rest of the race. It's not going to be an easy time for him. 10 minutes, 10.5 minutes still to go. You can see the gap that the leading two have got now because of the way this lot are tripping over each other. But Oulton Park is a notoriously difficult place at which to make an overtake. There are only one or two obvious spots to do it, so as long as you place your car correctly heading into those corners, you should be able to hold on to your position reasonably well. Now, Mikey Doble's job just became a little bit easier because car number 31, Will Oulton, right behind him, has been given a 5-second penalty for, guess what, exceeding track limits. We're not even halfway through the race and he's picked up a penalty for that. We saw him run wide down here a lap ago. That was probably the final nail in his track limits coffin because it was within half a lap of that we got notified of the penalty. So that means that Oulton is still physically there on the tail of Mikey Doble, but will lose 5 seconds when the race is over. So Doble could let him through, and as long as he stays within 5 seconds of the 31 car, he would still be in front on the result. Armfuls of opposite lot from both of them, though, into Shell, and that does open the door for Harley Horton now. So Horton up alongside Oulton, Horton alongside Oulton, easy for me to say. They've been side by side through this corner once already. They do it again, and this time Horton stands his ground. Oulton ends up on the grass, and well, the 5-second penalty is irrelevant now because he drops to the back of the queue anyway, as Horton goes through, and Conor Grady and Sam Smith, and that's Grady trying to find a gap up the inside of Horton for fourth into Hislops. This is music to the ears of Mikey Doble, who now finally can breathe and start to try and pull away from the group of cars behind that have been keeping him company pretty much since the start of the race. So up Clay Hill, underneath the pedestrian bridge, past the water tower, and then into the double apex right-hander at Drew. It's a fearsome corner, this one. The car's rocking on the suspension, slightly bumpy on the entrance there as well, which can unsettle the car quite easily. Number 48, Ignacio Zanon, being warned about track limits as well. Something, by the way, I know not what, but something has happened to Chris White, the race 1 winner in the AM class, because he's fallen right to the back of the field. Well, not quite to the back, but he's 50-odd seconds off the back of the cars that haven't had issues. He's still ahead of Neil Finnegan, but that's the only driver he's ahead of. So Chris White is not going to replicate his win from race 1. Karim Sekat had that penalty, didn't he? How far ahead is Sekat in the class? He's about 8.5 seconds ahead of Paolo Santi, so actually Karim could win this race even with the 10-second penalty that he picked up at the start because of whatever happened to Chris White. I haven't seen it, but I was chatting to Chris yesterday, and I'm sure he won't mind explaining the situation to me between races. Right, I think I started to tell you that Ignacio Zanon's been given a warning about track limits. That warning has now been converted into a penalty. So 5-second penalty, contact into Shell. That was Harley Horton into the back of Mikey Doble. Meanwhile, Sam Smith steals that 5th place away from Conor Grady. That was a really good move, that, from Sam Smith, who, as I said, coming out of Mazda MX-5 racing, where he's been a double champion, knows all about close quarters one-mate racing of this kind. And he showed his years of experience there by making a terrific move on Conor Grady at Shell hairpin. So, penalty then for number 48. Penalties all left, right and centre here. Will Oulton picked one up as well, of course. And once you get a 5-second penalty, it's easy to then pick up a 10-second penalty. If you exceed track limits once more, that's exactly what will happen to you. Now, there is Karim Sekat. Karim Sekat needs the AM class. The white car behind him is not an AM driver. That is the number 70, which is Sam Harvey. The Zentek driver is a pro. So actually, the next AM driver is Paolo Santi, number 77, who did gain a bit of time on Sekat on that lap. So the gap between the three of them is now at about 7.5 seconds. So that would not be enough once that 10-second penalty is applied to the number 10 car, but he's leading on the road at least. And because he's got no one around him, he can get his head down, put in some quick lap times, and try to build that gap up. He's still got nearly a third of the race to do it as well. 6.5 minutes still to go. Jenkins leads by 1.9 seconds now, so you're missing nothing at the front of the field. Will Jenkins delivering upon his qualifying performance. He was on pole position for this race by about half a second, and he is going to be almost impossible to catch now, you'd imagine, if you're on Matt Hodgkiss in second. Hodgkiss, though, 6 seconds clear of this fight, and we've had not a change. No, that's a back marker. Too many yellow and orange cars in the field. That confused me for a second. So Mikey Doble goes past the lapped runner, which I think is Neil Finnegan, isn't it, after his off at Cascades. So Doble still third. Harley Horton fourth. Avoids tapping the rear bumper of the number 88 car this time at Shell. 5 drivers here, tied together by a very short piece of string. 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th and 7th places. And Notice that 8th position now belongs to Ruben Haig. He's got himself ahead of Dave Sutton, who's another driver with a time penalty to be added on. Over Hilltop, down the other side. Mikey Doble looked like he might be able to get away from this group a lap or so ago. It's not been the case though, has it? And Harley Horton's been able to get right back onto terms with him. He got there pretty much straight away, and now is starting to ask all the right questions of the number 88 car. There's the leader, Will Jenkins, and fingers crossed for him that the car holds together this time, but if it does, this will more than make up for yesterday's disappointments. You get 35 points for winning a race, so 35 points would go his way, but of course he's already 35 points behind Saturday's winner, Nat Hodgkiss, who is right behind, well not right behind him, but next behind him on track. Now there goes Sam Smith. Oh, that's another really committed move from Sam Smith to get to the inside of Harley Horton. Horton's wide on the curbs, and I think Smith will get him. They lean on each other slightly. Conor Grady goes to the left, Smith to the right. 3 abreast across the start-finish line for 4th place. This is never going to end well. Grady's got them both. That was brilliant driving from Conor Grady, who has been racing in this championship for a number of years now, and his experience showed there. He read that situation well. He saw the move being made ahead of him, and he managed to pick the pocket of both Sam Smith and Harley Horton, who's been up and down like a yo-yo in this race, and now finds himself running further down the order than at any other point. He started 6th, and he is now running in 6th place as well, but he moved into 5th off the start. And of course he's got Will Orton behind him, who's got a time penalty, but is still going to be keen to make some overtakes if he can. So that all kind of started because of exactly what I alluded to a while ago. Mikey Doble defending into Druids. Horton didn't really want to go to the outside of him, but he was so much later on the brakes that he kind of had to. And that left the door open a fraction for Sam Smith to get through. It didn't end up helping Sam because, of course, they then both immediately lost a position to Conor Grady. And now Harley Horton looking to try and relieve Sam Smith of his newly acquired 5th position. Or, well, still in 5th, isn't he? But trying to get back ahead of him. And all the while, Mikey Doble just can't break away. A 10-second penalty, by the way, for Ignacio Zanon now. So the Italian driver has not heeded his initial warning and then 5-second penalty for track limits. It's been upped to 10 seconds now, which does rather confuse the running order slightly when you've got cars running in battles with time penalties to be added on. So the leaders are at Lodge Corner. They're going to come across the line with just under 3 minutes to go. So it's going to be touch and go. We'll either have 2 or 3 more laps. I'm not sure. Probably 2. Certainly Mikey Doble will be hoping it's just 2 because he'll be rather happy, I think, to see the checkered flag in this one. That was his personal best lap there. 53.492 was about just under a tenth quicker than the race leader that time. So Doble's got good speed, just wasn't really able to use it in the early stages. Oh, now that is a shunt for, I think, Sam Harvey at Druids. And yes, it is Sam Harvey, the number 70, the Zentek Motorsport driver, in the barriers. A lot of damage done to the front of the car, although the bonnets are designed on these G40s to dislodge pretty easily when there's frontal contact. It can sometimes look worse than it is. But that is in a dangerous spot, and we're that close to the end of the race that throwing a safety car, doesn't seem to be a lot of merit in that, so we'll see what race control decide to do. More 5-second penalties, including for Sam Smith. So Sam Smith, number 8, the orange car on your screen, has a 5-second penalty, as does number 70. Well, yes, that's Sam Harvey. He definitely did exceed track limits at Druids. I'm not convinced he gained an advantage from it, though, because he's in the barriers. But anyway, he'll be given a 5-second penalty to add on to his non-finish. And that, I would imagine, is a message that went out just before he went off. I am, of course, being facetious. He won't have got a third track limits penalty for crashing. So, Sam Smith now the latest to add to this list. So there's going to be hardly anyone that doesn't have a time penalty to add on. At the moment, this man doesn't. Will Jenkins, who goes past the stricken Sam Harvey car at Druids, and has just been managing this gap, really. Built it up to 2 seconds, and then it's stayed there ever since. Nothing that Nat Hodgkiss can do about it. And actually, this third place battle just calming down slightly, helped possibly by the fact that 2 of the cars in this group have penalties. So the orange car third in line and the white and blue number 31 of Will Orton at the back of it, both picking up track limits penalties. So realistically, it's just Doble 88, Grady 11 and Horton 20, who are the 3 legitimately contesting third place here. But ever since it's been Conor Grady on Doble's tail, Mikey's seemed a bit more comfortable. And so hasn't had to defend as much from Grady. He's been able to keep this couple of car lengths between them. And yeah, that's exactly what he wanted to do. Make a small break. You're only ever going to make a small break in this category. And although the gap comes down there into Island Bend, Doble should be able to cover the inside at Shell. There are really just 2 or 3 key areas where you need to defend. Sam Smith couldn't defend there from Harley Horton, who just found a Ginetta-sized gap on the inside, and Harley rubbing paint there with Sam Smith. And in fact, that looks like it's knocked some bodywork onto the right rear corner of Sam Smith's car. So you can see the tyre smoke there as they come through the Britain chicane. It shouldn't be a worry. We're on the final lap anyway, but yeah, that was pretty feisty stuff. And now Sam Smith trying to cover off Will Oulton, who's found a gap on the inside. Smith went to all the trouble of covering the inside and then opened the door in the braking zone. And so through goes Oulton. Smith gets elbowed wide over the grass, and that now frees up the 3 non-penalty ridden drivers to debate that 3rd place on their own. Less than half a lap away from home now, though, between Will Jenkins and his first victory of the season. And Nat Hodgkiss and a solid 2nd place. Hodgkiss will, of course, retain the championship lead, and winning a 2nd place, more than enough to fend off Will Jenkins, who didn't score on Saturday. But that is now but a distant memory for Will Jenkins, who converts pole position to a race win in a roundabout sort of fashion. A win in round number 2 of the Protyre Motorsport Ginetta GT5 Challenge for Will Jenkins. 2nd goes to Nat Hodgkiss, and then the wait begins. It's quite a lengthy one for there. Mikey Doble in 3rd, who just fends off Conor Grady by a 1/4 of a second. He's 4th. Harley Horton 5th, and then we let the timing screen tell the rest of the story, because we start getting into the drivers that have this time to be added on. So Ruben Haig will finish 6th. Will Oulton should settle out 7th ahead of Sam Smith. Didn't spot whether he got past him on the track there on the last lap. Or, oh yeah, of course we did, down at the Hislop chicane. So Oulton 7th, Sam Smith 8th, 9th Will Rochford, 10th Harry Mangham. This is Karim Sekat. Now Sekat has a penalty, 10 seconds to be added on. How far ahead of the rest of the AM runners is he running, though? Paolo Santi was about a second slower than him on the penultimate lap of the race. And if that's the case on the final lap, then Sekat might just have done it. Paolo Santi, no, Santi's going to do it by just over a second. And even more disappointingly for Sekat, he loses 2nd place to Bal Sidhu by 96 1/1000ths of a second on corrected times. So Karim Sekat, who dominated that race, is not going to get even a 1st or 2nd place finish. It ends up being 3rd on the podium in the AM category for Sekat after that presumed jump start penalty. No such issues, though, for Will Jenkins. He didn't lead every lap of the race after that slightly poor start, but once he got the lead, he never looked back, and a 2.1 second winning margin will do him very nicely indeed. Jenkins then wins the opening race of the day, the 2nd of the weekend for the Protyre Motorsport Ginetta GT5 Challenge. Hodgkiss 2nd, Mikey Doble, arguably driver of the race there, to hang on to 3rd. Conor Grady 4th, Harley Horton is 5th, Ruben Haig 6th, Will Oulton 7th, Sam Smith 8th, Rochford comes home in 9th, and Harry Mangham in 10th place, with further back the AM runners. Paolo Santi picking up the victory from Bal Sidhu 2nd and Karim Sekat 3rd after his penalty. An entertaining first race for the Protyre Motorsport Ginetta GT5 Challenge. Join us later for race 2.